How did we find ourselves standing on the shores of America, gazing at the distant skyline of New York, a city so foreign yet filled with promise? On November 6, 1944, the Allies were engaged in battles across Europe. But for us, captured soldiers, the world had shrunk to the confines of our ship and the looming unknown of our fate. The war raged on, but our minds were filled with the sight of the Statue of Liberty, a symbol of freedom that seemed almost mocking to us. We stood at the railing, staring at Lady Liberty, whose presence was both awe-inspiring and deeply ironic. American seamen, noticing our bewilderment, chuckled and remarked about the irony of our situation. Liberty, they said, was not something we would be enjoying any time soon. They were right. We handed over our treasured possessions, the remnants of our former lives, and stepped onto American soil with only our uniforms and a duffel bag each. As we disembarked, a crowd of curious American civilians watched us intently. A man shouted in German, asking about our tanks, the Panthers and Tigers, and we couldn't help but smirk. Our reality had shifted dramatically. We were marched into a hall, stripped of our clothes and given new ones. The process of dehumanization had begun. Walking through New York City to a subway station was a surreal experience. The city's colors, sounds, and sheer vibrancy were a stark contrast to the grim war-torn landscapes we had known. We boarded a subway train, marveling at this new world, and then a westbound train that would take us over 1,500 miles to Alva, Oklahoma. The journey was long, and the landscape outside the windows was a monotonous blur. Our destination was a place called Alva, a name that held no meaning for us then. We were told it was a Nazi camp, a term that puzzled and worried us. Had we been branded irredeemably by the war? The reality of our situation was sobering. Our sense of duty had carried us through countless battles. But now, in captivity, we questioned what honor and duty meant in this new context. As we arrived in Alva, the camp appeared like a small city, lit brightly even in the early morning hours. We were assigned quarters, simple rooms that became our new homes. Breakfast was served in a vast mess hall adorned with swastika flags and an imperial eagle, a surreal echo of the world we had left behind. We ate in silence, trying to understand this strange new existence. Conversations among us prisoners were filled with speculation and resignation. We had insisted on being treated according to the Geneva Convention, but this had earned us a place in a camp notorious for its harsh conditions. Despite this, we resolved to maintain our principles and dignity. The war was not yet over, and we clung to our identity as German officers. In the camp, time passed slowly. We were counted twice daily, ensuring no escapees. Our uniforms, complete with rank insignia and medals, became symbols of a past that seemed increasingly distant. The news from Europe trickled in, and we followed the war's progress with a mixture of hope and dread. The German Ardennes offensive in December 1944 briefly lifted our spirits, but it soon became clear that it would not change the course of the war. The days in Alva were marked by routine, studying, sports, endless conversations. Some prisoners had built a shortwave radio, keeping us connected to the outside world. The reality of our situation began to sink in, and the weight of our actions and the war's consequences grew heavier on our consciences. Then came the news of Hitler's suicide and Germany's capitulation on May 9, 1945. Even though we had anticipated it, the finality of it hit hard. We had lost the war, and with it, our sense of purpose and direction. The burden of the future seemed insurmountable. The war's end brought a new kind of suffering. The quality of our treatment by the Americans declined sharply. Food became scarce, and medical issues went untreated. Kidney stones, a painful reminder of the harsh conditions we had endured, plagued me for years. In late August 1945, rumors of forced labor spread through the camp, causing unrest and division among the prisoners. The Americans, cunning in their approach, promised those willing to work a quicker return home. This created two factions, those willing to work and those insisting on their rights as officers. Tensions rose, and the camp's unity fractured. We, the three friends who had stuck together through thick and thin, decided not to sign up for labor. We watched as the camp's dynamics shifted around us, maintaining our resolve. Then came the forced film screenings, showing us the horrific footage of concentration camps liberated by Allied forces. The images were beyond belief, challenging everything we thought we knew. We struggled to accept the reality of the atrocities committed in our name, the magnitude of guilt overwhelming. By December 1945, we learned that we would be returning to Europe in January 1946. The news filled us with joy and hope. We boarded trains and ships, our spirits lifted by the prospect of home. Upon arriving in Le Havre, France, we were handed over to the French, who treated us harshly, a stark contrast to our previous treatment by the Americans. In the French camps, we endured searches and harsh conditions. Despite this, we moved steadily east, closer to home. By late March 1946, I found myself in Austria, finally stepping onto the soil of my homeland. The devastation of the war was everywhere, but the joy of being home overshadowed everything. My journey home was fraught with challenges. My participation in the Hitler Youth and my role as an officer haunted me, complicating my efforts to rebuild my life. At the Vienna University of Technology, my past affiliations barred me from enrolling, a harsh reminder of the stigma that lingered. Over time, I managed to secure a job and slowly rebuilt my life. The war's end had left a scar on my soul, but it also gave me a profound sense of gratitude for having survived. The lessons of the past were heavy, and I carried them with me as I navigated the complexities of the post-war world. Returning to the places where I had fought, I was filled with a deep sense of humility and respect for those who had perished. The war had taught me the value of life and the importance of striving for a better future. The memories of the fallen, friend or foe, were a constant reminder of the price of conflict. The war had shaped us all, leaving indelible marks on our souls. As I stood on Austrian soil, the weight of my experiences pressed down on me, but the resilience of the human spirit shone through. We had survived, and with that survival came the responsibility to remember and to rebuild, honoring the past while looking forward to a future of peace and understanding.